Okay, so welcome you once again, all of you. This is a revision class of the human physiology for especially for the physiotherapy students, and we are discussing about the cell membrane and then if the time permits transport across the cell membrane. So first let me tell you that cell membrane structure बघतोय आपण. This is also called as a plasma membrane. This is a protective membrane, thin membrane and elastic membrane. Basically this membrane separates the ECF and ICF, extracellular fluid and intracellular fluid. Okay. Then composition of the cell membrane, naturally it is composed of proteins, carbohydrates and lipids. Lipids means fats, the same. Proteins are of two types, integral proteins and the peripheral proteins. Lipids, they are called as the phospholipids and cholesterol. Carbohydrates, okay. Then the central is a lipid layer. Central layer is a always lipid layer, which is a bilayer, okay. With the proteins forming the outer and inner layers, okay. Then carbohydrates are essential for the cell identification and immune response. Basically, this cell membrane is called as a fluid mosaic model. Fluid mosaic model. Okay. Why it is called like that? Because it is a membrane is like a sea, SEAC, with the floating icebergs. Floating icebergs. So this is the dynamic nature of the proteins are floating within the lipid layer. Now the lipid layers of the cell membrane, they have the two sides. That is, one is a hydrophilic, they are hydrophilic. That means they are afraid of the water. Hydro is water and philic is afraid of. Sorry. Helping to the water. That means they are very friendly for the water. And another is a hydrophobic, is like a fearing of the water. So hydrophobic are the tails and hydrophilic are the heads. Okay. So hydrophobic tails are meeting in the center portion of the cell membrane. Hydrophobic, remember. Okay. Then cholesterol molecules are from the lipid and they are interspread, providing the structural integrity and also fluidity of the membrane. Now, what are the functions of lipid layer? They are allowing the fat soluble substances. And which are fat soluble substances? Oxygen, O2 and CO2. Okay, but they restrict, they will not allow the water soluble substances, that is glucose and urea, water soluble. Now next is a protein layer. Protein layer again two parts, integral and peripheral proteins. Integral means from one end to the other end. Okay, integral protein span the membrane while the peripheral proteins are attached to the surface. Now what are the functions of protein layer? Integral proteins maintain structural integrity. They helping for the transport. They also serve as a receptors and also they are enzymes. So proteins are helping for active and passive transport of the substances. And also they have the role in cell adhesion and immune response. So we have finished about fat element, protein element, and now we will talk about carbohydrates. Carbohydrates, they are glycoproteins. That means attached to the proteins. And glycolipids. Glyco is a word for glucose. Okay. These carbohydrates, they helping for the cell recognition, then cell adhesion, and also sometimes act as receptor for hormones. So we have discussed all the things of the cell membrane, lipid, carbohydrates, proteins. Now in general, for the 3 marks, functions of cell membrane. First, they protect the organelle. Cell organelles mean inside. Golgi bodies, mitochondria, nucleus, nucleolus, etc. etc. So they are protecting all these internal elements, cell organelle. Number 2, they regulate the permeability. That means some are permitted from particular lipid layer, lipid part, particularly from the protein part, etc. Cell membrane helping for absorption of nutrients. They also excrete the waste products. cell membrane helping for the gaseous exchange, and cell membrane maintain the cell shape and size. That's it. Now is your turn. My dear friends, anybody can answer very fastly, very quickly, fastest finger first. Anybody can answer, okay? So please open your microphones and answer very quickly, very fastly, because we don't have the time. What is the another name for the cell membrane? Please.
Plasma membrane.
Good. What are the three main types of substances which are composed the cell membrane? Three main types of the substances.
Protein, lipid, carbohydrates.
Very good, correct. What percentage of the cell membrane is made up of proteins?
55%.
55.
Very good. What are the two types of lipids found in the cell membrane? Two types of lipids.
Phospholipid and cholesterol.
Very good, Shabas. What are the two types of proteins found in the cell membrane?
Peripheral and integral.
Very good. In the fluid mosaic model, what is the structure of the membrane compared to? Comparison.
Tiles.
Sorry?
C.
But C with
Iceberg.
what? Yes, floating iceberg. Very
Mosaic
correct.
model.
Very good, very good. What is the central layer of the cell membrane made up of? Central layer. Central layer of cell membrane made up of?
Lipids.
Very
Fatty
good.
acid.
No. Yes, lipid, fatty acid, etc. But lipid is correct answer. What are the two parts of phospholipid molecule called? Now lipid, we are talking about lipid. Two parts of the molecule. Two parts of the molecules. Yes. Head portion and the tail portion. Remember.
Yes.
Phospholipid, head and tail. Nothing for it. Next question. What is the head portion of phospholipid molecule made up of?
Phosphate.
Yes, but it is a hydrophilic or hydrophobic?
It is hydrophilic.
Hydrophilic.
Very good. What is the tail portion of phospholipid molecule made up of?
Fatty acid, and it is hydrophobic.
Very
Fatty acid
good.
and it is hydrophobic.
Correct answers. Very good. Keep it up. Where are the hydrophobic tail portion of the phospholipid located in the cell membrane?
Inner to the cell.
Yes, that means center part of the membrane. Hydrophobic tail. Tail is the center portion. Okay. Now, what is the function of cholesterol in the cell membrane? Cholesterol function in the cell membrane. Yes. They pack the phospholipids, that means fats, and responsible for structural integrity. That means to combine all the things together. Okay, structural integrity. Next question. What types of substances can pass through lipid layer of the cell membrane?
Oxygen.
Sorry?
Oxygen, carbon dioxide, alcohol.
Yes.
Water soluble substances.
Very good. Water soluble substances, and answer is two examples are O2 and CO2. Next question. What is the another name for integral proteins? Another name.
Transmembrane proteins.
Very good. Shabbas, keep it up.
Intrinsic.
Yes. What is the function of channel proteins? Function of channel proteins. Channel proteins. Function.
Diffusion of water soluble substances.
Correct answer. Very good. Correct answer. What is the function of carrier transport protein? Carrier or transport proteins? What is the function of carrier?
Active or passive transport.
Very good. Shabas. What is the function of receptor proteins? Receptor proteins.
It is responsible for the transport of hormones and neurotransmitters.
Yes, very good. But first you should say receptor sites for hormones and neurotransmitters. First they will receive and then they will help for the inner going inside. Okay. So receptor sites means first they will receive. Correct answer. Hormones and neurotransmitters. Next question. What do some protein molecules form? Another function of the protein, or what they do? Some protein molecules form. F-O-R-M. What did form? Construction. Enzymes. Very correct answer. Yes. What is the carbohydrate layer of the cell membrane called? Carbohydrate layer of the cell membrane.
Glycoprotein.
Glycocalyx. Yes, correct. Glycocalyx. Very good. Name a function of glycocalyx. function of glycocalyx?
It helps to make the cell together.
Yes, that is a tight fixation of cells.
It
Tight.
forms a thin and loose covering.
No, basically glycocalyx is basically responsible for tight fixation of cells with one another. That is a more perfect answer. Now give the three functions of the cell membrane. Last question.
It absorbs
transportation,
the nutrition.
Yes.
selective permeability, absorptive function.
Very good. Three functions are important. Protective function, selective permeability, and absorptive function. Don't forget protection, selective permeability, and absorptive function. Okay, thank you very much. Now I am going or moving further to explain in short transport across cell membrane, only part 1. There are two PPTs. Okay, so there is a two types, but I will give you the nutshell of the part 1, transport across cell membrane. Basically, we have the two types of transport, passive transport and active transport. Passive transport includes simple diffusion through lipid layer and protein layer or ion channels. Types of the channels, three types. Channel, voltage gated, ligand gated, mechanical gated. There is a gate. And second type is ungated channels. So remember two channels in the passive transport, gated and non-gated or ungated. And gated, there are three types: voltage gate, ligand gate, mechanical gate. Now, there are also special types of passive transport, that is a bulk flow, filtration, and osmosis. I repeat, special types of passive transport: bulk flow, filtration, and osmosis. Okay, but the important passive transport is always simple diffusion through the lipid layer. Now I am going further, active transport. Of course, this particular first part will be more passive transport, but active transport will be the second part. Active transport involve always carrier protein, and this transport may be uniport, semaport, or antiport. Primary and secondary active transport mechanisms are discussed, including sodium potassium pump, calcium ion transport, and H ion transport. Everything is active transport. They require the energy. They require the carrier protein. They require the ATPase. Special types of active transport. They are endocytosis, exocytosis, and transcytosis. Then this endocytosis again divided into pinocytosis and phagocytosis and receptor mediated endocytosis. Now next, transport across cell membrane. Cell always need to transport essential substances, and also it is needed that waste product should go out, remove of the waste product. That is why there is a transport. The cell membranes, lipids and proteins are very important, critical for transport between ECF and ICF, extracellular fluid, intracellular fluid. Now, basic mechanism of transport, everybody knows that passive transport, active transport. Passive transport mainly diffusion. What is diffusion? Moving the substances along concentration gradient or electrical gradient, but without energy. Substances move from high to low concentration region. Now this diffusion is again divided into two: simple diffusion, facilitated diffusion. Simple diffusion occurs through lipid or protein layer, while facilitated diffusion use carrier protein. Facilitation means helping. They take the help of carrier protein. Now we will talk about simple diffusion. Simple diffusion is divided into diffusion through lipid layer and diffusion through the protein layer. And lastly, we have seen facilitated or carrier mediated diffusion. Now first I am discussing simple diffusion through lipid layer. Lipid layer is permeable to only lipid soluble substances. O2, CO2, alcohol. Lipid soluble substances O2, CO2, alcohol. Diffusion through the lipid layer is proportional to the substance solubility in lipids. That means how much they are soluble. More soluble, more permeability. Less soluble, less permeability. Now simple diffusion through, yes, protein layer. Protein layer is permeable to water soluble substances, mainly electrolytes, Na, K, glucose. Now protein channels or ion channels. Protein channels are formed by integral protein molecule lining pores in the lipid layer. There are pores, holes are there in the lipid, and there is from one end to the other end there is an integral protein. This integral protein is like a channel. These channels help for the diffusion of water, diffusion of electrolytes. But remember, whichever the other substances remaining that cannot pass through the lipid layer, the protein channels will carry them. Now I am discussing types of protein channels. Protein channels have a selective permeability, allowing only specific ions to pass through. And naturally channels are having the name according to these ions. For example, some channels are sodium channels because they permission only for sodium ions. Another channels are potassium channels because only permission for potassium ions. Now, regulation of channels. Some protein channels are continuously open, that is ungated channels. But some channels are closed. They are called as gated channels and they open only when required. Now we will talk about gated channels and three types of gated channels: voltage gated, ligand gated, and mechanically gated channels. First, voltage gated channel. Naturally, the name suggests they respond to the, yes, change in electrical potential. RMP changing, change in the electrical potential. An example of voltage gated is a calcium channel opening at the neuromuscular junction. And when they open? During excitation, contraction, coupling in muscles. Now second, ligand gated. They open only with the presence of hormone. Hormone means ligand. Hormone means ligand. Example, acetylcholine is like a hormone or like a neurotransmitter. Opening sodium channels at the neuromuscular junction. This is the example of ligand gated. Ligand is a hormone or neurotransmitter. Next is a mechanically gated. Is a physics like mechanics. These channels, they require some pressure receptors. Pressure, this is a mechanics. I am pushing something. This is the pressure. So mechanically, they always work with some mechanical factor like pressure. For example is hair cells of the organ of Corti. You remember the auditory our pathway, organ of Corti. And in the inner ear, organ of Corti is always in the inner ear. And vestibular apparatus, they are having mechanically gated channels. So sound waves are coming, they are attacking on the cilia of the hair cell. Then organ of Corti opens the potassium channels and naturally further process going on. Now we will talk about facilitated diffusion. Facilitated diffusion involves the transport of larger water-soluble molecules through the cell membrane with the help of carrier protein. Don't get confused. Facilitated diffusion is a passive because it doesn't require the energy. They don't require ATPase. Only they require some helping hand, and that is a carrier protein. This process is faster than simple diffusion because they have the enough good help of the carrier protein. And examples include transport of glucose and amino acids. Now next topic is factors affecting rate of diffusion. How fast this passive diffusion will go away. So diffusion is depend on the permeability of the cell membrane. First factor, permeability. Number 2, temperature. Number 3, concentration gradient. And 4th, solubility of the substance. Then there are some other things, thickness of the cell membrane, size of the molecules. Okay. Then charging of the ions. This also affect the diffusion rate. So there are many factors which can affect the rate of diffusion. Now nearly our examination point is finished. But for the merit purpose or who wants the oral powerful special types of passive transport, number 1, bulk flow. Bulk means large amount. Bulk is a large amount. So diffusion of the large quantities of substances from high to low pressure region. Simple example, bulk flow, O2 transport. Bulk flow, O2 transport. Bulk flow, O2 transport in the lung. Atmospheric O2 is much more than the alveolar O2. So bulk flow, oxygen transport. Bulk flow, oxygen transport, alveoli. Filtration, everybody knows. Kidney glomeruli filtration. Kidney glomeruli filtration. That is movement of water and solutes. Solutes mean kshaar. From high to low hydrostatic pressure. Filtration, kidney glomeruli. Filtration, kidney glomeruli. These are the types of the passive transport. And osmosis, there is a difference. Diffusion is different and osmosis is different. Don't get confused. So we have first all the points we have covered about diffusion. Now we are talking about osmosis. Movement of water from lower to the higher solute concentration. Remember, this is solute concentration. Osmosis, solute concentration from not higher to lower, lower to high solute through a semi-permeable membrane. This is also happening in the kidney. That means in the proximal convoluted tubule. For example, osmosis also having the two types, end osmosis, water moving into the cell, and ex osmosis, water moving out of the cell. So my part is finished. Now the topic is opened for question and answer session. So I request all of you to be very attentive for this question answers session. Transport across cell membrane, part 1, question and answers. Keep your mics on. Fastest finger first. What are the two basic mechanisms involved in the transport of substances across the cell membrane?
Active and passive transport.
Very good. Active and passive. Correct answer. Next question. What is passive transport is also known as?
Diffusion.
Yes. Another name?
Downhill transport.
Very good. Downhill transport and diffusion. These are the another alternatives. Very good. Does passive transport require energy?
No.
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 No,
Correct.
sir, no.
Passive transport does not need energy. Next question. In passive transport, how do substances move in relation to concentration?
Higher
Higher
concentration
concentration to the lower concentration.
Very correct answer. Good. From higher concentration to lower. Next question. What are the two types of diffusion?
Simple diffusion and
Simple
facilitated
diffusion
diffusion.
And facilitated diffusion.
Very good. Correct. Where does simple diffusion of substances occur? Where?
Lipid layer.
And also
Protein
protein
channel.
layer.
Oh,
Both.
protein.
Lipid layer as well as protein layer. Don't forget. Both their diffusion is possible. Okay. Next. What helps facilitated diffusion occur?
Carrier
Carrier
proteins.
Very good. Very
Carrier
good.
mediated.
No, a simple answer. What things are helping? Carrier protein. That's it. Carrier proteins are helping. Good. For the facilitated. Facilitation means helping. Next question. What kind of substances can permeate by the lipid layer of the cell membrane? What kind of
Fat
substances?
soluble. Fat
Correct.
soluble substances.
Like for example,
Oxygen, carbon dioxide.
Oxygen,
Carbon,
CO2, alcohol.
three substances. Correct. O2, CO2, alcohol. Very correct answer. Next question. What substances mainly diffuse through the protein layer of the cell membrane?
Water soluble substances like glucose.
Mainly electrolytes. Yes, correct. Glucose is also correct,
Electrolytes.
but electrolytes is very correct answer. Next question. What is the characteristic feature of protein channels? Characteristic feature of protein channel.
It has carrier proteins.
No,
They
It
travel
has
in bulk,
pore.
bulk flow.
no. I repeat, what is the characteristic feature of protein channel? Selective
It has
permeability.
pores.
No, selective permeability. Selective permeability because it has a
It has a
sodium
function
channels
of
are different, potassium channels are different. So they allow only specific ion, that is called as a selective permeability to specific ion. Next question. What are continuously opened protein channels called? I repeat, what are continuously opened protein channels are called?
ungated channels.
Very good. Ungated channels. Next question. What are closed protein channels called?
Gated channel.
Gated channels.
Correct answer, gated channels. Next question. Name the three categories of the gated channels.
Voltage, ligand, and
Voltage
mechanical gated
gated,
channel.
the gated channel, ligand gated channels,
Chan
mechanical
Vattam.
gated channels.
Very good. I am very proud of you, all the students. Come up very nice answers. What causes, but I hope that you have not opened your notebook. But anyways, to begin with, it is allowed. But try to be answered without notebooks also because that can make a very good revision for you. Okay. This will continue for every Monday and Thursday. Ask your friends to join in most of the maximum numbers because they will hear the summary of my lecture and also they will have these question answer session. What causes voltage gated channels to open? Why they are opening voltage gated channels?
Excitation, contraction, coupling.
No. That is example. That is example. And that is not a correct example. Voltage gated channel. What is the
Change in
cause?
electrical potential.
Change in electrical potential is the correct answer. Change in electrical potential. My next question. What causes ligand gated channels to open?
Hormonal substances.
Correct. Very correct answer. There should be some hormone. Then only ligand gated channels will open. Otherwise not. Next. What opens mechanically gated channels?
Mechanical substance.
Mechanical factor. For example, pressure. For example, pressure. And another where it is acting?
Hair cells in organ of Corti and vestibular apparatus.
Very good. Correct answer. Next question. What substances are transported by facilitated diffusion or carrier-mediated? Both are same. Carrier-mediated diffusion. Which substances are
Water
transported?
soluble.
Glucose.
Yes.
Water soluble substances.
Like
Like glucose and electrolytes.
no, yes, correct. But glucose and amino acids as well. Amino acid is also water soluble. Don't forget it. Next
Okay, sir.
question. How does temperature affect the rate of diffusion?
It will directly affect the rate of diffusion.
That means it will be
It is
directly
directly
proportional.
proportional to the body temperature.
Remember, the word is directly proportional. For example, temperature increase, rate of diffusion increase. Next question. How does the thickness of cell membrane affect the rate of diffusion?
rate of diffusion is inversely proportional to the thickness of cell membrane.
Very correct answer. For example, can you give me any, because this is not in the PPT, but I have told in the class. That is, for example, your alveoli are very, very thick because of the tuberculosis, fibrosis. And then naturally you cannot consume the proper oxygen. So alveolar membrane can be always thick, and then oxygen will be less and the patient will be having breathlessness. Okay, but that is the additional information. Next question. How does the charge of ions affect the rate of diffusion?
It is inversely proportional to the rate of diffusion.
Correct answer, inversely proportional. That means greater the charge, 2 plus 3 plus, naturally lesser will be the rate of diffusion. Diffusion will be less. Next question. What is the bulk flow? Bulk flow. What is
Large quantity of substance from a region
The
high.
substances are passing from the high pressure to the low
Pranjal is more
pressure.
correct. Large quantity of substance. This is the correct answer. What is bulk flow? Large quantity of substance from higher pressure to lower pressure. Large quantity, this word is bulk large, bulk large, bulk large. Remember this. Next question. What is filtration? What is filtration? In the kidney, what is filtration?
It has high hydrostatic pressure to the from high to low hydrostatic pressure.
Correct answer. Filtration is the movement of water and solutes from high hydrostatic pressure to low hydrostatic pressure, because in the blood there is a great volume of the plasma, and naturally it is giving to the pressure on the glomeruli, and all the things are coming inside the Bowman's capsule. Next question. Define osmosis. This is a very important question for your oral. Define osmosis. Osmosis definition.
Movement of water or any
Movement of
solvent
water
from
Movement of water
lower
from lower
concentration to
the
higher
higher
concentration of solute.
through the semi-permeable
solute.
membrane.
Very correct answer, but here don't forget the word. It is not from higher to lower. It is from lower solute concentration to the higher solute concentration. Correct answer. Next question. What is osmotic pressure? What is? This is also
Pressure
important.
exerted by the
Pressure
fluid.
created by the solute in the fluid.
Correct. Very good answer. Pressure because of the solutes. That is osmotic pressure. Now last question. What are the two types of osmosis across the cell membrane?
Endosmosis and exosmosis.
Very correct answer. End osmosis is inside the cell, movement of water into the cell, and X means out. X osmosis is the movement of water out of the cell. Thank you very much for your nice answers for the transport across the cell membrane. And then I would like to continue with the part 2, transport across cell membrane. Just listen carefully. Just listen carefully. This all the PPT is related with the active transport. Okay, listen carefully. Active transport is moving substances against chemical or electrical gradient. It requires the energy, and it is coming from the breakdown of ATP. Active transport is different than facilitated diffusion. Remember, active transport is related with the energy, and facilitated, it's not requiring energy. It is only requiring the helping hand with the carrier protein. So there is no confusion in active transport and facilitated diffusion. Now, carrier proteins and the substances transported. Carrier proteins is there also. That means in the facilitated diffusion, you have the carrier proteins, and in the active transport also, you have the carrier proteins. But energy is there in active transport and no in the diffusion. Carrier proteins in active transports, what are the carrier proteins? Uniport, symport, SYM, and antiport. Actively transported substances, they are ions. Sodium ion, potassium ion, calcium ion, hydrogen ion, 4 ions, chlorides and iodides. They are actively transported. And non-ionic forms also transported sometimes with this carrier protein like glucose, amino acids and urea. Now I am talking about types of active transport. Primary active transport is using energy directly from ATP breakdown. Substances transported by primary active transport. Which substances? Sodium, potassium, calcium, hydrogen, and chloride. Now, secondary active transport. In secondary active transport involves transport of a substance with sodium ions with the help of common carrier protein. Try to understand, in this secondary active transport, they are not directly using the energy with ATP. Please try to understand. They are depending on the primary active transport. That means someone is going with the help of some what you can say, the ओळखी पाळखीत नाद चाललाय त्याच्याबरोबर आपण आज जायचं. So secondary active transport is not directly using the ATP molecules, but it is taking the help of primary active transport. ची help घेऊन ते secondary active transport होतं. Next topic is important for your 3 marks SAQ is a sodium potassium pump. This is coming under active transport. Sodium potassium pump transport 3 sodium molecules out. Am I right or wrong? And I will repeat it afterwards. Sodium potassium pump transports sodium out and potassium into the cell. It is present in everywhere. Sodium potassium pump is present in all cells because they are essential for RMP. Sodium potassium pump RMP. Sodium potassium pump RMP, externally positivity and internally negativity. This sodium potassium pump action involves the binding of sodium and potassium ions to the carrier protein, and when they bind, they activate the ATPase. This is the enzyme, and naturally this ATPase will do the breakdown of ATP and energy is generated. So this is sodium potassium pump. Electrogenic activity and ion transport. The sodium potassium pump, electrogenic activity. Electrogenic means something electrical activity is there, reduces the positive ions inside the cell. That means negativity is increasing inside the cell. Calcium ions are actively transported out of the cell. This is another example by a calcium pump. Another example powered by ATP. We are talking about active electrogenic activity, active transport. Hydrogen ions are actively transported by hydrogen pump. So you remember 3 pumps: sodium potassium pump, calcium pump, and hydrogen pump. All pumps are using ATP. Hydrogen ions are actively transported by hydrogen pump, important in the stomach because hydrochloric acid is there for the acid formation, and kidney function. Hydrogen is thrown out. That is why our urine is acidic. Now I am talking about secondary active transport. Secondary active transport is a co-transport and counter-transport. Secondary active transport includes co-transport. It is also called as a symport. Co-transport, symport. That means 2 molecules are going together inside. And counter-transport is an antiport. One is going in, another is going out. That is counter-transport. Sodium co-transport moves another substance along with the sodium, but they are utilizing the energy from sodium movement. Sodium is moving actively, but another molecule is trying to go in with that sodium molecule. That is co-transport. In sodium counter-transport exchange substances with sodium ions. For example, you pair sodium-calcium or sodium-hydrogen exchange. So this exchange is not directly taking the help of ATP. They are taking the help of sodium movement. So this is called as a secondary active transport, which is symport and antiport. Now I am going further. We are discussing active transport. Vesicular transport. This is also active. Mainly 2 types: endocytosis, exocytosis. This is active transport. For example, endocytosis transport macromolecules into the cell. Endo means inside. And exo, they expel, thrown out substances from the cell. It is opposite to the endocytosis. Now I am discussing types of endocytosis. Very simple. First is a pinocytosis. Pinocytosis, cell drinking. Pinocytosis, cell drinking. Drink water like a water. Phagocytosis, cell eating. Phagocytosis, cell eating. And there is another third one, receptor mediated endocytosis. Now what is phagocytosis? Oral question. Engulf larger particle and is performed by cells like neutrophils and macrophages. Neutrophil and macrophages, they engulf the bacteria. Phagocytosis. Now you forget about receptor mediated endocytosis. I forget. Then there is also transcytosis. I think that is also not necessary, because transcytosis means involving the macromolecule entering from one side of the cell, cross the cytoplasm and going out. That is transcytosis. Now last part of this discussion, then question answers. Applied physiology. You must be able to tell abnormalities and channel diseases. Abnormalities and channel diseases. This is applied. Why we are learning this transport mechanism? First example. Abnormality in the sodium potassium pump. Abnormality in sodium potassium pump can give cardiac failure, heart fail, or hypertension. This is the problem of sodium potassium pump. Next, ion channels diseases. Ion channel diseases, they are coming because of the mutation in the genes. Our parent, mother and father, mutation is abnormality in the genes encoding that ion channels. And last is a chloride channel dysfunction can cause renal stone and cystic fibrosis. Chloride channel dysfunction, renal stones and cystic fibrosis. Now I think better, but there is some, I don't remember why there is some, just a moment, I want to read the chat. I cannot, sorry sir, will you please repeat the sodium potassium pump? Okay, unfortunately, whoever is asked, I think this class is just for the revision and entertainment type of the revision. So you can open your notebook and also open your PPT and read those all the things. But right now I will be interested to take what you can say, the question and answers, rapid revision, rapid fast round. Okay, transport across cell membrane. I'm sorry, part 2 related with the active transport. My first question, your microphones, keep it on, and fastest finger first. What is active transport? My question.
Active transport is the movement of substances against the chemical or electrical or electrochemical gradient.
Perfect answer and correct answer. This is the movement against. Against is a very important word. Chemical gradient, electrical gradient, electrochemical gradient. Against. Next question. Does active transport require energy?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Full answer. Complete answer. It is a
Yes,
not,
active transport required energy.
but mainly obtained from energy.
ATP. ATP.
Yes, breakdown of ATP. Please don't forget, breakdown of ATP is the correct.
Breakdown of ATP.
Next question. How do carrier proteins of active transport are differ? They are different from those in the facilitated diffusion. They both there are carrier proteins in the active transport as well as in the facilitated diffusion. What is the difference?
Sir, it does not require any
Facilitated.
energy.
Where? Where required and where not required?
Facilitated diffusion.
The complete answer.
Facilitated diffusions are required, does not require energy because it is transported along the concentration gradient.
Yes, but another part should be completed. Carrier protein of active transport, they need the energy in active transport. But whereas the carrier proteins of the facilitated diffusion, they do not require the energy. Correct answer. Next. How do substances move in active transport versus facilitated diffusion concerning gradient? How do substances move in active transport?
Against the concentration gradient.
Yes, and in facilitated?
Along the concentration
concentration
Correct.
gradient.
I will repeat, your answer is correct, but I will repeat the answer. In active transport, substances move against the gradient, while in facilitated diffusion, the substances move along the gradient. Next question. What are the two types of carrier proteins involved in active transport? Name.
Uniport and symport.
Very correct answer. Uniport and symport or antiport. Very correct answer. These are the carrier proteins in active transport. Next question. What is a uniport carrier protein? What
It
is?
is a single direction transport of protein.
It transports the substance to the same direction or the single direction.
Very correct answer. I will repeat. A uniport carrier protein carries only one substance. That is word has missed. Uni means only one. Only one substance in a single direction. Only one substance in a single direction. Now, my dear friends, before continuing this next question answers, I request all of you, please, you can at the end of the lecture, you put it, what you can say, the WhatsApp messages, how do you feel this type of the revision lectures and whether you are interested to continue to attend this type of the lectures and why do you like this particular lectures. Next question. What is a symport, SYM, S-Y-M, not S-Y-N, S-Y-M. What is a symport carrier protein?
Proteins are carried out
It is a protein.
with the help of two substances in the direction at the same time.
I will repeat. A symport carrier protein transport two different substances in the same direction at a time. Two substances, same direction and at a time. Next question. What is an antiport carrier protein?
It transfers two different proteins in different direction at the same time.
I will repeat. The question is, answer is roundabout correct, but an antiport carrier protein transport two different substances in opposite directions. Not two directions, in opposite direction is, the word is more perfect. Next question. Name some substances transported actively in ionic form. Name of the substances, ionic form. Which ions?
Sodium, potassium, calcium, hydrogen, chloride and iodide.
Very correct answer. There are approximately 6. Sodium, potassium, calcium, hydrogen, chloride and iodide. My next question. Name some substances transported actively. That means active transport is there, but non-ionic form. Non-ionic.
Glucose, amino acids,
Glucose,
and
amino
urea.
acids and urea.
Correct. 3 substances, glucose, amino acids and urea. Next question. What are the 2 types of active transport?
Primary
active and secondary active
transport.
Correct answer. Primary active transport and secondary active transport. Next question. How does primary active transport obtain energy? I repeat. How does primary
by the breakdown
active...
of the ATP.
Very correct answer. In primary active transport, energy is liberated directly from the breakdown of ATP. My next question. What is the common carrier protein for sodium and potassium ions? What is the common name of the carrier protein for the sodium and
Sodium,
potassium?
potassium.
Sodium potassium pump.
The answer is sodium potassium pump. That is correct answer. Next, where is the sodium potassium pump is present? Where is present? Where this pump is present?
All
All
cells.
the cells of the
Correct. In
body.
Pump is
all the
present
cells
in
of the
all the
body. Very
cell
correct
of
answer.
body.
Yes. Next question. What is the electrogenic activity of sodium potassium pump? Electrogenic activity.
RMP.
Sorry.
Sir, the 3 sodium ions
Uh,
outside the cell,
Yes.
2 potassium inside.
Yes. Yes.
in the resting membrane potential.
Yes. The complete answer should be like that. The sodium potassium pump moves, MOVES, 3 sodium ions outside, 3, and 2 potassium ions inside, resulting net loss of 1 positive ion from the cell, and that is why there is a positivity outside and negativity inside the cell, which is responsible for RMP, that is resting membrane potential. My next question: how are the calcium ions actively transported?
With the help of calcium.
Yes, loudly. I repeat the question. How are calcium ions actively transported?
With the help of
With the
calcium
help of
pump.
calcium pump.
Very good. A calcium is actively transported from inside to outside the cell by a pump, calcium pump, which obtain the energy from ATP. Next question. Where are hydrogen pumps functionally significant? Hydrogen pump, where are they in the body?
Stomach, kidney.
Stomach
Sorry?
and kidney.
Stomach and
But specific answer should be hydrogen pumps are functionally significant in the parietal cells of the gastric glands in the stomach. Parietal cells of gastric glands and epithelial cells of renal tubules and collecting tubules in the kidney. Next question. What is secondary active transport? Question. What is?
Substances are carried out with the help of the ion sodium.
Yes, anybody else want to try? My question is, what is secondary active transport? The answer was correct. Secondary active transport is the transport of a substance with a sodium ion using a common carrier protein where sodium's movement is coupled with another substance transport. That means sodium is basically responsible for transport, and with the sodium some other substance is moving. That is, a joint venture is there. Next question. What are the two types of secondary active transport?
Counter transport and
co-transport and counter-transport.
Correct answer, co-transport and counter-transport. My next question. What is sodium co-transport? What is sodium co-transport?
Any substances is carried along with the sodium ion.
Very correct answer. A sodium co-transport is the process where along with the sodium, another substance is transported by a semaphore carrier protein in the same direction. Next question. Name some substances carried by sodium co-transport.
Glucose, amino acids, chloride, iodine, iron, and urate.
Very correct answer. A substances carried by sodium co-transport is glucose, amino acids, chloride, iodine, iron, and urate. Next. What is sodium counter-transport? What is sodium counter-transport? Anything? Anybody?
It is transported. It is transported as exchange of sodium ion.
Very correct, but the full answer should be sodium counter-transport is a process. Always these are the processes where substances are transported across the cell membrane in exchange for sodium ions by an antiport carrier protein. Antiport carrier protein and exchange with the for the sodium ions. Next question. What are the special categories of active transport which are also called as vesicular transport?
Transcytosis, exo and endocytosis.
Correct answer, endocytosis, exocytosis and transcytosis. Next question. What is endocytosis?
The large molecules are carried
Entering the cell. Macromolecules
entering.
are entering the cell. Correct. What are the three types of endocytosis?
Phagocytosis, receptor and
Pinocytosis.
Correct. Pinocytosis, phagocytosis, and receptor mediated endocytosis. Next question. What is pinocytosis is also called as another name?
Drinking cell,
Cell
cell
drinking
drinking.
cell.
Cell drinking.
Cell drinking. Correct. What is phagocytosis also called as?
Cell eating.
Cell eating.
Correct answer. Which cell in the body show phagocytosis?
Macrophage, neutrophil.
Neutrophils, monocytes.
Very correct answer. Neutrophils, monocytes, and tissue macrophages. Next question. What is the receptor protein involved in receptor mediated, and very complicated question. By chance, if you have the notebook, you can tell me. Involved in the receptor mediated endocytosis. What is that particular? The
Repeat
word
करा
is,
ना एकदा.
what is the receptor protein involved in receptor mediated endocytosis? The name is very difficult.
Receptor coated pig.
No. Only
Clathrin.
you have in the PPT. That is, the name is clathrin. 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 That is the name of the protein. Next question. What is exocytosis? Exocytosis.
Substances
Substances
are
are
carried out
out of the cell.
from the cell.
Yes, the substances are expelled from the cell. And this is the reverse of endocytosis. But these cells are excreted, that means substances are excreted without passing through the cell membrane. That is very important. Now next is, what is transcytosis? What is transcytosis?
It passes through the cell membrane and also carried out from the cell membrane. It just
No, it enters from the one side of the cell, then migrate across the cytoplasm and exit from the another side of the cell membrane. That's it. That means it enters into the cell, but from the one side and going out from the another and passing whole cytoplasm. Next question. What pathological conditions are associated with abnormality of NAK pump?
Cardiac failure.
And
hypertension.
correct, and hypertension. Next is what are channelopathies? What are these channelopathies? I have not used that in my previous summary.
Mutations in genes.
Okay, that is correct. Mutation in the genes, that is the problem in channelopathies. Next is what can be the dysfunction of sodium channels lead to? What is
Muscle
the problem?
spasm.
Muscle spasm.
Okay, good. What disorders are caused by potassium channel dysfunction?
Cardiac
Heart
failure.
disorder.
Heart problem. Very good. Correct
Disorder of
answer.
heart.
And also epileptic seizures and sometimes inherited deafness. Last question of this revision class. What results from the dysfunction of chloride channels?
Renal stone.
Formation of
Cystic
Cystic
fibrosis.
fibrosis.
Yes, very correct answer. My dear friends, thank you very much for your nice cooperation. I am ending this particular session and I wish all the best for your studies. We will meet on the next Monday. Thank you.